Hello comic fans, here's Earl Grey. Yeah, this will be a crazy video, as you can see, and yes, I want to speak about all of these books here. This rabbit hole here for me started with this book that was gifted to me by my wife, I guess 2 years ago as a birthday present, because we both enjoy the works of the German cartoonist Flix. And he did a new take on this classic Franco-Belgian funny character Spirou and his friend Fantasio. And here they have an adventure in Berlin of 1989, the so-called end of the Cold War. Very funny comic, and I asked myself, yeah, maybe it's time for me to delve a bit deeper into the Spirou lore. And this can end in this fashion here. However, yeah, one book after another arrived here of this collected edition of Spirou and Fantasio. Actually, this is the last one of these, but I start with it because it shows the beginning, the very beginning of Spirou. Here we have Robert Welter, or short Rob-Vel, the creator of Spirou, even though calling him the creator of Spirou is just a part of the truth, because Jean Dupuis, the CEO of the now very famous Belgian comic publisher, he wrote down all the characteristics for a comic character that he wanted to have as the central star of a new magazine for children. He already put out these weekly magazines for women and their husbands, and now he wanted to expand his universe. But yeah, and they came up with Rob-Vel, who was moderately successful. Here we have him painting some stuff. And yeah, here you can see one of his earlier creations, and this is an amazing title page, especially if you think of the year when it was published in 1937. Down there we have him, Mr. Rob-Vel. Drawing his creations here and smoking a pipe, and he tries to extinguish the pipe over there while the other character sharpens his pencil and so on. This is a nice drawing, and yeah, so they went in exploring how this Spirou should look like, and here's some other stuff that maybe explains why this Spirou guy has this strange bellboy uniform. Rob-Vel worked in hotels as a lift boy or some, and he was familiar with these bellboys, and someday one of these bellboys died on a ship on which Rob Welter worked. So somehow his Spirou invention was some kind of figure to honor this kid. Here we have Rob-Vel in uniform of one hotel, Roosevelt, I guess he worked in. And here we have another creator or father of the early Spirou, Luc Lafnay, one friend of the wife of Rob-Vel. She is actually another one of these creators, mother, if you will, of the early Spirou. So it was really a team effort to put out these weekly comic pages for the Spirou magazine. And here's the first Spirou ever, Le Journal de Spirou, issue 0, it states over there, and actually it was given away for free. But 1938 was obviously not the best time to start a magazine for kids. So Rob-Vel has to serve the Belgian army no, the French army, because he is a French artist, which caused a problem afterwards, because Dupuis being a Belgian outfit and he a French artist, so when the Germans occupied France and Belgium, it was, caused real problems. He drew at the front or in the army while serving the military, but at some place in time it didn't work anymore. So for a short period of time, Gégé stepped in. Another one of these great Franco-Belgian creators. This one here is an ad by Rob-Vel. This is the very first page of the very first Spirou magazine. And this book here says that this one should be Luc Lafnay, actually, not Rob-Vel, even though I don't know. But here he creates Spirou, who literally pops out of the canvas and steps into existence. And quite a short, funny, and original origin story. So, and we have lots of these goofy one-pagers, mild, humorous fun. Doesn't blow your socks off, to be honest with you, when you read it today. But lots of characteristics of the Franco-Belgian art style, or what has become this Franco-Belgian cartoon style, are already there here, the dynamics and so on. Later on, we had even a long adventure around this millionaire guy, American millionaire by the name of Joe Money. In 1943, Jean Dupuis stopped the presses because he denied the cooperation with the Nazis. The Nazis wanted him to produce propaganda for Germany, which he didn't want it to and didn't do it, which is very honorable, of course, and obviously very dangerous. Afterwards, after the World War, Gégé stepped in, and there will be another of these beautiful collected editions with Gégé's Spirou, a take on Spirou. But the most famous version of Spirou was created afterwards, after Gégé stepped in, by Franquin. And here we have the first comics by Franquin, who later on invented Gaston, and he added the Masupilami to the series. And here we have his beginnings as the creator of these weekly Spirou strips, and you can see it's very animation-like. You can almost do some kind of flipbook out of these pages here, and here we have the way that it was presented in these weekly magazines. So maybe these pages here are not the best start to read Spirou, but you will see how with each of these collected editions, this is volume 2, how Franquin added nice details and new characters to the scene. Most and foremost, his very own creation, Masupilami. And after he left Spirou and Fantasio later on, he did a contract with Dupuis that they are not allowed to use his character Masupilami in the Spirou stories. So he was aware of his rights as an artist, which is really interesting and a good thing. I mean, this is another character here, Spips, a little squirrel. By the way, his name Spirou is a term from the Wallonie, the French-speaking part of Belgium, which means actually a squirrel. So hence this animal is a pretty logical addition to the scene. And slowly but surely he developed his very own cosmos of characters in this little town called Champignac in French. In German it's Rummelsdorf, and I don't know how it is called in English translations. There have to be some English translations, come on. This Spirou is after Lucky Luke and Asterix, or after Asterix and Lucky Luke, maybe the next most important comic series of all time. Even though his bellboy uniform always turned me off initially, even though as a kid I wondered why is he looking like this? But this is not only due to Rob-Vel's, the original creator's work in hotels and knowing, being familiar with bellboys, but he learned his skill and craft at an American cartoonist, and was aware of the importance of uniforms, like superhero uniforms. So this bellboy uniform is in a way a twist on these superhero uniforms, but it became later on really a problem for each new creator. What should I do with this uniform, because it is so anachronistic. Very typical for these funny Franco-Belgian funnies are the very realistic depictions of cars. I mean, you can take whoever you want, from Maurice Tillieu and to André Franquin and whoever. They all do their cars very right, and you can place these comics in certain time frames. So I really love these Franquin Spirous. They are maybe the best Spirou comics ever done, but they have very close contenders, as you will see. Beautiful cover here. I mean, the way these books here are made, they are by the German publisher Carlsen. But we have different publishers who do sort of the same thing, these collected editions of classic comics that came out originally in France and Belgium and whatnot. And these are really long stories that slowly became good vessels for longer story arcs. And our guys here visit some Banana Republic, and they have this arc enemy here. And yeah, it's just good comic fun, and sometimes even with some political punch to it, especially this one here. Champignons für den Diktator. Mushrooms for the Dictator is a pretty solid political satire. This is Spirou and Fantasio Volume 4, and if you're like me, a lover of old-timers, old cars, this is some extra fun, I think, always with these comics. Even though we have still well-drawn but a bit old-fashioned slapstick in these comics here. And this is Volume 5. This is Volume 6. All these collected editions contain at least 3 albums, plus bonus material and short stories and whatnot. One of the other arch enemies of Spirou and Fantasio, he became later on even a friend. So its characters can change over the run of the story, which is another nice feature of the Spirou and Fantasio comics. And I binged all through these books. When they arrive, they're usually the first book or the second book that I read, because they are very much in my comfort zone. I can read them like breathing, so I breathe them in. And not just because they're in German, but they're very cleverly told. The era Franquin ended quite abruptly when he had a phase of depression. He was always prone, obviously, to depressive phases, but there was a point in his career when he couldn't keep on producing this funny stuff when he didn't feel so funny. And they had to do a break, and they waited for him to come back. Of course, they just said he's sick, so but we hope the best for him and that he will come back, because depression was not so an acknowledged disease way back then, I think. But it came the time when the magazine Spirou and the publisher Dupuis had to choose another artist, which was for a long time, 10 years or so, a guy called Fournier, Jean-Claude Fournier. Here you see him. No, that's him. These are his parents. And this is a very early effort from him. So, he was obviously very interested in Spirou from early childhood days on. So, to tell you the truth, the very first Jean-Claude Fourniers were a bit of a disappointment for me, even though this is a very cool panel here, this cartooning, but they lack the fun, the details of André Franquin's art. Even though when you look at it, it's of course very entertaining and enjoyable cartooning, no doubt about it, but nevertheless it can't really compare to Franquin's art. But Fournier really improved, and especially this is the second collection with Spirou comics by Jean-Claude Fournier, and here in this book it really rang for me, it clicked for me. This is volume 11 of these collected editions, and unfortunately it contains the last stories that Jean-Claude Fournier could produce for Spirou. Here we have him, and he always said that he liked to do more of it, but yeah, they throw him out. They fired him, and not under the nicest circumstances, which is all told here. And in this case here, the story of Spirou is pretty interesting. I mean, how the publisher treated their artists, and often pretty poorly, or not as good as they deserved, let's put it this way. The story here was maybe one of the reasons why Jean-Claude Fournier was fired eventually. Paradoxically, it is maybe one of his best stories ever. It was his most impactful, for sure, because it was political, maybe too political for the publisher Dupuis. Fournier used the character of the Ankou, one of these imaginations of the folklore of the Bretagne. Jean-Claude Fournier is from the Bretagne, and he's the avatar of the death and the afterlife. But in this story here, he is the protector of the Bretagne as well. And he's very concerned because they want to build a power plant, an atomic power plant in the Bretagne. And this character of the Ankou, in the way Jean-Claude Fournier drew him, was shown on demonstrations against atomic power plants in Belgium. Here you can see Jean-Claude Fournier's creation used as a poster art for these demonstrating people. So, and yeah, maybe this was too political, so they thought we had to get rid of this guy here. He uses our spirou for some other purposes. We don't subscribe to that. Anyhow, the last stories by Jean-Claude Fournier, not only the Ankou story, but the other stories here, are among the strongest stories, in my opinion, in the Spirou universe, even though they didn't contain the Masupilami anymore, like I said it because Franquin kept the rights for this character. Afterwards, and collected in volume 12 of these collected editions, we had a short interlude in which Juan Convin wrote stories for an animation artist called Nick Broca. Here you can see him. For him, like for all the other creators, it was a bit of a dream come true that he could draw Spirou, one of the biggest and most important creations in Franco-Belgian comics. But he was fired under very rude circumstances. The fans weren't really his fans, and not the fans of the story, neither the stories nor his art. So eventually it was a sad story, and it's always not nice when people seem to arrive at the thing that they always wanted and not succeeding at this. And Dupuis, the house of Dupuis, you can't say it differently, they were not nice with these artists. In contrast, they started some sort of competition. Who will draw our future Spirou? And so they let different teams and artists compete with each other. Yeah, not the nicest thing to do, but the result was very enjoyable. And this is the point where I actually am with my reading right now. These are really fantastic stories here. These are the 4 stories that are collected in this particular volume. And the team that should lead the Spirou flag for some years from then on were Jean-Richard Geurts and Philippe Thomé, or Philippe Thom. And they went under the handle of Thomé and Jean-Ry. And if you're thinking of Tom and Jerry, then this is no accident. They deliberately choose this these handles with Tom and Jerry in mind, so that could be easier memorized, even though after a short while Tom and Jean-Ry were really stars. Here we have them amongst the cartoonists, even the Franco-Belgian cartoonists, even though they really started as assistants and they worked their way higher, but just by the sheer quality of their contributions, they succeeded and were chosen to be the new Spirou artists. Here we have the Comte or de Champignac, one crazy scientist who always comes up with nice inventions like a powder to melt metal, which led in one of the older Franquin stories to an abrupt end of the military in one of these banana republics. And this is one of the tropes that I really like in these spirou stories, the underlying political satire components, if you will. And it's not a new invention that comics can be political as well. They don't have to, in my mind, but they can. And when it's done well, it's always some kind of extra, I think. Especially if it works with these comics that were written and drawn actually for children, but can be enjoyed by human beings of each age, in my opinion. So, and the series here goes on, and I will for sure keep you updated on my adventures in Spirou Land. This is the next tome with Tom and Jean comics by with Spirou and Fantasio adventures. There will be more, and by other creators as well. Yeah, I guess that's enough for today. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.